And we're live. Welcome to our next community workshop with DAppaDan. It's titled, oh gosh, I'm trying to think, what is the name of the title here? Get good, get paid? No, that's totally wrong.
Something like that. Get started, get good, get paid.
There
In
we
that
go.
order.
That's why everybody's showing up. They want to get paid, right, DAppaDan? So for those that don't know DAppaDan, actually, I first read the name during Web3 Con. Like I was part of Developer DAO, and if anybody came in, oh, there it is.
Represent.
Anybody that came in and Developer DAO in the early days when the NFT first launched, you'll remember the chaos. Like it was just crazy. So I had personally taken a little break because I'm like, I'm not really getting what I want out of the DAO. And then I saw that there was this Web3 Con, a hackathon. I was really interested. And that's really what brought me back into Developer DAO, because I got to really meet a lot of cool folks and like, hey, it's not as chaotic when you get down into the ground level and you're building with people in that level and meeting everybody like, hey, Developer DAO is pretty cool. That event really brought me back into Developer DAO and became an active member like I am today. So like if it wasn't for the works, if it wasn't for the works of DAppaDan and like Rahat and like a lot of the people that were behind the scenes of Web3 Con, who knows where I would be, right? So like it's an absolute pleasure to bring DAppaDan and put him on the mic. You guys are here to not hear me talk. You're here to hear Dan. So take the show. Go for it.
Cool. Thanks everyone. I guess if you pull up my deck now, I'll get a start. So welcome everyone. More than amount of people signed up for this. So I don't know what you expect. I was talking to Billy, but I guess you're gonna get what you're gonna get on this. But I called this getting started, getting good, and getting paid with Web3 technical writing. Basically, this is gonna be me outsourcing. I get a lot of questions on how to get into technical writing, or how do I start a freelance journey or something like that. So this is going to be me outsourcing all of that knowledge. So if anyone ever asks me, I can just link them to this video, and then and then boom, there's all your answers. But I'm gonna try to blend this a little bit. I'm gonna do some like content strategy. So I know some of you may be joining or watching, and you're not necessarily a writer, but maybe you're in charge of writing or content, or maybe you're a developer advocate or something. So this will be a blend of like some of the technical parts of technical writing, as well as like the higher level strategy of it all. Cool. Let's see if that actually. There we go. So about me. So I'm been freelancing technical writing specifically in Web3, and there's a reason why I put Web3 technical writing in this. So I'll get to that later on. I hope you've read something that I've written. I used to say, like, to be really egotistical, like, oh, you have read something I've written. But I've written for projects and protocols that you've heard of, and also ones that you haven't heard of. We don't talk about those anymore. But I'm quite published in regards to just kind of educational content, whether it's developer docs, like kind of technical explainers and guides and tutorials. So I've done all the whole gamut of it. So I say that not just to like brag, but I'm not like randomly just talking about this topic. Like I've lived it. And, I'm not trying to sell you a course at the end of this, but I'm happy to take any of your money later on if you want to give it to me.
He's gonna drop his wallet address real quick in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. DAppaDan.eth, by the way. But you can catch me on Twitter, DAppaDan Dev. That's probably where I'm most active, but that's also on Telegram. That's my site. And amongst other things, I do have a newsletter out. So it's called Protocol Newsletter. Basically, it's a kind of a tour guide of different Web3 projects and protocols. I wrote it because, even though it's good that we get a lot of content on these products and protocols that are out there, they normally come from like the DevRel team of that product, or someone associated with that product. So I wanted to have like a kind of unbiased place where you can get reviews of like whether things are worth building, how to build with them, and what I think is like next step. So it's kind of me just explaining my whole opinion on everything. So that's the link, protocol.dappadan.xyz. And like Billy so pleasantly mentioned, I was part of Web3 Con and hopefully part of Web3 Part 2. But Rahat, if you're watching, you need to really get up on that so we can get going on this. Cool. But this is not what you came here to. You didn't come here to hear me talk about myself. But one last section is kind of why I got into technical writing in Web3 specifically. When I joined about 2 years ago, Web3 really lacked good documentation, or any documentation. a lot of these projects, they would launch a website and people get excited on Twitter. Maybe just have like their Discord link, and then that was it. They would be like, oh, the vibes, like we're gonna change the world, but no instructions on how to build with their tool or what their tool did, and that was incredibly frustrating for someone trying to learn the space. So I kind of tried to pave my own path by actually just writing things down, and I felt like there was a huge need. There still is quite a need, but I think some of the areas have matured, which is kind of cool to see in just the past 2 years. And just a FYI for everyone, this presentation will be filled with developer DAO member memes, because that's what it was voted on by the public on a Twitter poll. So if you're not in the developer DAO and you have no idea who these people are, or you're not part of like the banter on Twitter or not, just know that's why we have random people in this. This person here is obviously just here with the vibes and drinks, and their glass is all empty. So that's kind of how what the vibe was like when I joined Web3. I also got into it because Web3 is really developer driven, for better or worse. You have to be quite technical to get a grasp on some of the concepts, and you see all of these projects out there. They throw money like crazy out, hackathons. They get Billy over here to organize their hackathons because they want developers building on their protocols and their projects, because ultimately that's kind of how they design their value, right? And the quickest way for any project or protocol to lose developer attention is to have bad documentation, right? You can have the god tier developer relations person like Nader or Kami or anyone, right? But they're never going to outrun bad documentation, right? So I also found that this space is really a good place for someone that wants to get into technical writing to really provide a lot of value pretty early on, because like I said, in the future, right, it was like nobody writing or no writing, and then now it's like, okay, how do we get developers attention? And that's really about the content that's out there. And then like I said, I started as a learner, right? And writing to learn something is actually what I call like an absolute hack in life. So normally when I write something, it's like I just want to know about it. Like zero knowledge, account abstraction, all of these concepts that are out there and people like love and talking about them. Like I'm never gonna understand that unless I write about it, or build something around it, which is kind of a part of the writing. So that's another reason why I really like getting into technical writing, because it allows me to really kind of shortcut some of those things where I don't have to just like continue to read stuff. But once you like look at an empty, you know, Google Docs page or something, and you're like, oh, I need to like make sense of this. That's really when you start getting concepts down. So there's this book. All right, there's gonna be a lot of book references. So if you like reading, this is gonna be a great talk for you. But this is the first book I'm gonna recommend. It's called Writing to Learn. And it really kind of explains some of the concepts of how to approach writing to actually learn different concepts and things like that. And technical writing, I think, is an absolute hack for that, especially with Web3, where there's new ideas, concepts, like the flavor of the month every month. I also want to level set here on what actually is technical writing, because I'm gonna say technical writing quite often, obviously in this presentation, and I mean a certain couple of things. There's different activities. There's developer docs, there's like guides, tutorials, there's technical articles, there are explainers, there's things like that. That's all under the umbrella of technical writing. There's even things like you might not think about, but like white papers or light papers. Like any protocol that launches probably launches also with a white paper. I haven't written a white paper before, unfortunately. And whenever someone asks me like, oh, we'd like to have you write a white paper, I'm like, I haven't written one, but I'm happy to write one. And like, oh, well, you don't have an experience, but I'm not going to write a white paper for free. So anyone that wants to give me a chance of writing your white paper, I'm here for that. Video scripts as well. Video is quite a big thing, especially around the developer relations side. But maybe you have a technical writer that does all the writing, and maybe you have someone that's like far more prettier than you, doing the actual face and reading your script. And then social media, Twitter threads, all of this stuff is kind of also can encompass technical writing. And when I talk about technical writing, that's all the things that I mean. But what is it? So this is my definition. And Billy, if you do me a favor, can you just read what's in the bold there? I hope you can see that it's bold.
The intent audience understands. Is that what you want me to read?
Intended audience. No, not the whole thing. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Billy, this is my presentation. I'm not going to give you that airtime. But yeah, so explaining a technical, this is my definition, explaining a technical concept or instructions in a way that the intended audience understands. And I put that in bold because a lot of times people think, oh, technical writing, what it is, you just got to explain things really easily, or like it's a super obsessed thing where people like, oh, explain like I'm 5. And that's cool. Like it's a good thought, but like I don't know any 5-year-old developers. I don't know, Billy, do you know any 5? I know like there's like 13-year-old developers out there, but 5-year-old developers? No.
Not at all.
Yeah, exactly, right? So why do I need to explain something like you're 5? I don't need to do that. I don't think you want to understand what your audience is, whether it's like junior developer, senior developer, developer, JavaScript developer, whatever. Write for them and not just write for something that just to oversimplify something. Because I think there's sometimes a huge tendency for people when they get started, they want to write something like super simple and they get like overly cute with it, and then they lose some of like the substance. So I always say like, okay, who have an audience in mind and write to them, and don't worry about just like oversimplifying or simplifying something. It's okay. There's some things that need to be complex, but you need to deliver in a way that people understand. That's technical writing.
Uh-oh. I
We're
think we
back.
lost you for a second.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Well, really quick before you move on, that we did have
Yeah.
a question on here from Cypher, and I hope I say that right. Did you make a list of suggestions for reading or references?
I should. I'm gonna do that. I'll put it on Twitter or something like that. But yeah,
Okay.
because I have a lot of resources here. I was hoping, Billy, you were gonna keep track and just like send it to him. That's what you were gonna do.
I failed on that task then. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Blame it on
man.
me.
No, we didn't rehearse this, so yeah. It's okay. Yeah, that's a good shot. I'll definitely put a list together of all these stuff. Cool. So this is gonna be my hot take section. And I don't know if these are gonna be like hot takes, like spicy, but they're gonna be what my opinion is on things in technical writing that I think are kind of important to get out. And yeah, maybe some people disagree with me, but that's okay because this is my quick presentation. So the first kind of hot take or the question I get a lot is like, should technical writers learn to code? Billy, what do you think?
I believe you should have some sense of knowledge and overall, yeah, but not like 10-year engineer or something, but something,
You're a smart man, Billy. So I say yes, right? They definitely should learn to code in some capacity, because again, if you are writing to a developer audience, if you can't like empathize or you can't like feel the pain of a developer when they, experience bad documentation or tutorial that's unclear, it's going to be really hard for you to get really good at technical writing. This is my opinion. I see a lot of people, and I don't think, to your point, Billy, like I've seen interviews where people like, okay, we're going to do like a coding task for the technical writer, like a live coding, like that may be a bit too far, because normally technical writers, like, you have time, like not trying to produce code, quickest possible, but you should have enough confidence to at least build a tutorial or something like that with the product that you're using. And then, even if you need to get like an engineer in the team to like review your code or someone else, that's fine. But like to just say I'm not going to learn the code and like the writing is just my thing, you might miss out on a lot of ability or a lot of skill that you could develop. So I think technical writers should definitely learn to code. And like this person's saying, serious coding definitely takes serious focus. So it's not easy all the time. All right. So this is another one. So does DevRel equal technical writing? So Billy, I'm gonna give you another one there. You weren't ready for this, Billy.
I'm gonna say it should have a little bit of technical writing, because for me, like, I don't want to hear it from the engineer that's been working on it for 10 years. I want the person that translates it to English. So being able to take that complicated issue and break it down for something for me to understand is where it's at. Like that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's a good take. And I write this because a lot of times what happens, especially on the projects that like I've worked on it, or what I hear is that, oh, we either want to hire a technical writer or we want to hire a developer advocate. And I don't think it's like a either or like, hey, we don't need a technical writer anymore. We hired a developer advocate. And I mean, like this person here was like on the DevRel. You can't really see on your I think the logo's blocking my meme, but it says a DevRel in their natural habitat, right? So like, you're sending this person around the world, all these, ETH conferences. They're going out to the community, they're building projects, and then also we want them like in charge of the documentation, right? That's like that's probably too much for one person to take on, or even a team of people. But I do believe, like I said, bad technical writing or bad documentation or bad guides, that will turn off a developer faster than a really nice person at a conference. And this is not to discredit developer relations at all. I've done that role before, but that technical writing is the scalability of it all for the content. So for me, I say no. I don't think that they are the same thing. Like you can't just say, oh, we'll replace either or of one of those things. I think they both work together, and you should also, if you can afford, obviously, to have people dedicated, two people dedicated, or multiple dedicated to those specific things, and not expect one person to do them both. At least both them do them reasonably well, at least. And I like to say this though: technical writing is like DevRel at home. And what does that mean? So like I have this meme here, like the like classic mom meme. Can I get like some DevRel? And we got DevRel at home, and this is the DevRel at home. I think technical writing is DevRel at home, and what do I actually mean by that? At home is like internally with the company, because see, we have this little technical writer, right? This little me, beep beep beep. I'm in the middle of all of it, and if I want to like make good documentation, or I want to like help solve problems with my guides or whatnot, I actually need to like connect with multiple parties and multiple people within the company. So engineering, right? They're actually like building the spec, and like most of the documentation starts just at like code comments, right? Product, because I need to also know like when things are going to get released. I need to know what the new features are that they're interested in, what the roadmap is, so I can prepare. There's marketing and sales, right? Like I want to be on brand. There's certain documentation pages. For example, when we talk about the company, or like how we explain, like some companies like to say Web3, some companies like to say crypto, some companies like to say blockchain, some like to say them all. Some people like to put Web3 as 2 words. All of these things, and I need to kind of know that. So I actually have to like work with some marketing and even some salespeople, right? They are, if like we actually have customers or something like that, they know what people are actually building, and I want to make documentation that is aligned with what people are building. And then also, I think the probably most important one, if the company has it, it's like customer success, right? So these people are out there, they hearing the problems of developers, and if they give me an idea of like, oh, we're getting a ticket all about this problem, oh, I can build a documentation page on that or a tutorial on that, right? So I solved that problem, and I need to also make good relationships with all these people. So this is like my DevRel at home relationship management type thing. And what's interesting is not a lot of people other than technical writers get excited about documentation, right? So it's like I also have to get people kind of excited about meeting me and talking about these things, that they're going to solve their problem. So that's another part of like the DevRel part is, right, getting excited about the product, and the product being the technical writing that I'm going to do. So that's super important. That's kind of the transition, I think.
Real quick question on there for you from the audience, and hopefully I don't say this. Zellworth is, do you have any advice for technical writers for non-native English speakers, or any tips with that?
Yeah, well, maybe I guess one of the good tips I would say is definitely use your non-native English as an asset, and not a liability or a knock against you. I'm going to show later on some good examples of technical writing, and one of them is about expanding language. So depending on whatever language that you speak, if you're writing in your native language and there's a good developer audience in that language, I would definitely say, hey, like, look, and I can make native documentation or native content there, and I something I can't do it in many languages. So I think that's one of the main tips. Other than that, like the technical parts of it all, or like what makes good documentation, probably is pretty universal for whatever languages that you have.
100%. Just to chime in a little bit, like I'm trying to slowly start an initiative for some Spanish speakers to write in Spanish, but the problem is a lot of people want to take Google, a Google translator, and then translate it over, and it's like it makes no sense, because one, you're not relating to the different type of like lifestyle, or like just like the way people react to certain things in that environment. So like you don't understand the culture. So if someone's writing from the culture to the culture, it's totally different, right? Like, like you said, crypto or Web3. I call it crypto, and when I see Web3, I kind of cringe a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But that's like, if you know your local area, you know the lingo to use. And so like it's for me like that. I think that's a big major advantage for a lot of people that can write in different languages. So anyways, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna poll. I don't know how many people are in the chat, but I'll poll the chat and see Web3 or crypto. I want to see what I'm definitely in the Web3 camp actually, Billy. So we got some disagreement here.
Yeah. I'm pro crypto. I think Web3 for me is kind of like a VC term, because blockchain and crypto was so 2018 and they got like a bad rep. And so like, okay, how do we rebrand it to make it something a little bit less complicated? So like we had this Web2, Web3, but crypto was kind of punk. So I'm a little bit more punk. So like I go with the dark side. Yeah.
I'm more VC suit and tie kind of guy, Cool. So another thing I think the differences between like developer relations and technical writing is talking about community and audience. And this might be, oh, DAppaDan, you're just like really splitting hairs here. Like this is ridiculous. But I think community is basically all available developers that could use a certain product or have a certain problem, right? So as a developer, like a developer advocate, you don't necessarily always need to talk about your specific product. And like, if you want to be an authentic developer advocate, right, you probably don't just come shill, oh yeah, use this every time, no matter what use case. But in technical writing, right, I'm less concerned about like all available developers, but the developers that end up on our page or on the documentation or on the guides, because that's the audience, and I need to know who ends up on our page. So that's kind of how developer relations kind of work together, because they are kind of funneling people into the page. But I need to know who they are, what they're looking for, what kind of problems they solve, what their experience is, because that's the audience that I have. So technical writing, I think, is very focused on audience, while developer relations focuses on the community. And obviously there's some blend, there's some gray area between those things. But if I were to say like, okay, develop like, oh, I need to go to the community as a technical writer, I think that's kind of a misdirection of effort. Well, if you want to focus on the audience that you have and meeting their demands or their needs, that's where good technical writing lives, rather than just kind of writing to developers as a whole. So this is the last question or hot take. Is technical writing the easiest way to get into tech? So Billy, go ahead.
I think if you write good stuff out there, you can have a portfolio of stuff that you've done. Have I seen a lot of good stuff out there? Not really.
Oh wow, flaming you in the chat, yo. He's talking to you about you in the chat.
I'm a big critique of DevRel, because I'm like, you gave me the appetizer, but where's the meal, right? Like, okay, maybe you got me in and I'm getting started and maybe I want to follow along, but you left me hanging. Like, I feel like I'm ghosted and I can't find anything else. And so I'll keep checking other people's write-ups and they all seem to stop at the same place. So it's like, are you guys all playing from the same playbook? So who's different, right? Yeah.
God, I hope I don't leave people. I hope they get the full meal. This talk, this workshop, not give me the appetizer. But yeah, so that's a good point, right? So my answer is probably not, but maybe. So yeah, anybody can start writing, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And to your point, right, writing really well is probably still a barrier or an obstacle. Like, oh yeah, I mean, anyone can do a tutorial real quick, but actually being a good developer is quite different. But I think sometimes people say, oh, if you want to get into tech, like go through technical writing and then you can like do other things. And I don't think at the high levels this is like a stepping stone for people, because like I said, there's quite a lot of strategy or technique that you should kind of master or investigate if you want to get really good at this. And this is what we'll talk about later on. Instead of just like, I posted something on my personal blog and now I'm a technical writer. That's kind of different. But I think like the scariest thing for anybody is this, right? This like blank page, untitled document. Let's go write something. Like lots of people freak out. So even if they like want to be a technical writer or they want to get into tech and that's where they think, they normally start and stop right here. So yeah, again, saying it's the easiest way, I don't know. It's certainly probably easier than
I think we lost him here, folks, but just bear with us, and I will definitely ask your question, Web3 family. We're gonna let it load to see how DAppaDan returns.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I said this is easier than maybe becoming a smart contract developer, but not easiest, I don't think. So getting started now, I want you to now that we've kind of decided what it is and my hot takes, like how do you get started? And I don't want you to leave like this person who tried technical writing and now they're like they're permanently upside down, which is not a good place to be. So one, I think the best way to start is kind of falling in love, which is easier said than done. But basically, find a project or a protocol or just like even a problem space within Web3 that you love and enjoy, whether it's like Web3 gaming or data solutions or smart contract auditing. Just find like one area and just like really soak it up, really research, really kind of not become you don't necessarily become an expert on all of it, but really say, okay, this is what I'm going to start writing about because that's going to be a good place to start. And then I want to say like divide and conquer. So there's a lot of big topics within everything I just said, Web3 gaming, right? For example. But if you take those big topics and you just find small, interesting bits, and you can get this is technical writing. So nothing is like too technical or too nerdy or too geeky, right? Like it's all you could get really in depth on in these little bits. And then obviously the best advice is obviously just get to writing, right? Like look at that blank Google Doc page and just start. Because that's the only way you're really going to get better at any of this stuff. And this is the obvious advice. I hope you didn't come here thinking I wasn't going to say that, but here I am. I'm saying it because that's just the truth of it all. So just to give you an example, right? So let's say I want to write about Web3 and AI. AI is hot. If I put AI in any tweet, Reddit, it'll just go bang. So let's say we're gonna do Web3 and AI, and there's kind of three areas maybe I could look at, right? So data, there's things in Web3 with storage, there's Filecoin, Arweave, there's even data unions, maybe with Streamer, and these are all things that like AI will touch or AI is kind of in involved in. And again, I could write a whole article on just on data unions. And then training, right? We have all this decentralized ML stuff coming out now. Jensen, there's a bin tensor protocol. So I could even get you could look at AI and just these data training deployment, or I could even look three different things I could look at just in decentralized ML, right? Specifically. And there's deployment, right? We see all these decentralized clouds also growing, Akash, Flux Cloud. So again, I'm broken at one big topic, Web3 and AI, right? I'm not just gonna like write about that. That's really hard to start, but I can break down and look at specific products, protocols, projects, and then even get deeper into that and talk about the concepts and how Streamer, for example, applies to data unions. So that's kind of way get a good idea of like what I mean by falling in love with an area, breaking it down, and then looking at the product.
I think we lost Dappa again. But DAppaDan, before we get farther in, hopefully I'm gonna have a couple questions for you when you come back. I'm gonna load it up on the screen. There, you're back. You're back.
Oh, so yeah. Do you know, this is a hard question. Do you know roughly how many Web3 tech writers work full time in the space? Oh, 53. That's a guess. I don't know. There's probably yeah, it's probably something like that, to be honest. I would guess. And I don't know if that's probably included like maybe some DevRel people who only focus on more technical writing. I don't know. It'd probably be less than 100. Was my assumption at least. Okay, so suppose I'm writing an article on some protocol on how to use it, the technical side. It is important to provide a quick 101 before starting the actual code stuff. I guess you're saying, is it important? Yeah, I think so. Not just like the one-on-one, but like why does it exist? So a lot of times we get into articles and like, oh, I'm gonna talk about Filecoin, right? And then you might say like the what it is, but like why is decentralized storage important? Because for a developer, especially someone that's like maybe this is the first time looking at that concept, the why is way more important than just like describing what Filecoin is, because everyone has done that already, right? But when you describe why it is or why it exists or what the benefits, that's probably going to be very unique to you or what you think it is, and that's going to make your article a little bit different than what you see everywhere else.
Gotcha. Real quick on that one, Dan. So like for me, what inspires me to write something is I struggle to something that I couldn't find information on. So I'm like, hell no, I don't want anybody else to struggle like I did. So I create my own one. Like the ultimate WAGMI guide is like probably like my biggest article that I've ever written. And like to this day, even though it's been outdated, it's like a lot of people take the assumption that you know something. And then when you're trying to follow along, they skip that part because they assume you knew it. And so then you're stuck, right? And then you can't move on. So like I took it all the way from like building a Solidity contract to deploying it to verifying it to then starting your front end with all the exact details from every piece, how to call a function while passing a value. Because like I couldn't find these little things like, oh, pass a value. But then it's like, wait, I want to send some ETH. And there's no tutorial on that of how to send a value, you know? So it's like all these little tiny things. So I felt like taking that whole hold your hand the whole way through was really nice, but some people loved it and some people said that was too long for them to read, and it's like, that's not for you, right? Like
exactly. That's what I mean by audience, right? Another thing with audience is that you should be very clear who this is for and who it's not for, and it's okay that it's not for everyone. And I think that's quite the difference between maybe someone that's like, just focus on community, they want to capture as many, as well as audience. Like, and you could write another article if you wanted to, Billy, and like this is the advanced version or whatever, right? So like just being very clear with who your audience is even early on is super helpful. But I think that's awesome that you wrote that, because that's what's unique about Web3 and why I put Web3 in the, or crypto in the in the title here, because in other traditional tech or Web2, whatever you want to call it, there's probably like 300 articles around like deploying your WordPress site, for example. And they're like, all SEO optimized to hell. They're like, probably been written by teams of people. So you're up against quite a lot of things to even get attention. But for you, right, or in this space, like you could probably write like an article and you'd be like one of like 5 articles or one of 3 articles, right? So it's also super nice that you can get quite attention if you write really well and you write something useful, because people will spread that pretty quickly. So some resources. I'll put all these resources in some sort of space so that people can get it. But resources to getting started. So there is a Google technical writing course. I think it's really good to get some of the technical parts of technical writing. So like some of the grammar and phrasing. I won't talk about most of this stuff in this talk. Like I said, I want to spread this around for different skill levels for people. But this is probably a great place if you've never done any technical writing. It gives you some basic ideas and concepts. And so well worth doing at least. Hashnode also put together boot camps every year. So Hashnode is like a blog hosting site, a developer blog hosting site. And so check that out on the YouTube channels. I think the past years were quite really well done. There's some that are about developer relations or just kind of brand building and all of that, and there's some that are just specific to technical writing and even freelance technical writing. And I definitely checked those out when I started because they were really inspiring and gave some good information. And then lastly, there's a whole community called Write the Docs. It's all about technical writing, not just from a crypto Web3 space, but for everything. And I think it's great because the technical writers here, they have like 10 15 years of experience. They do a conference every year, and they'll like the talks are great. They give great information, and you can like basically shortcut your experience gap really quickly by watching all those. So like I try to watch one like a week because it's just so good. Now we're gonna get good, right? You don't need to do any push-ups to do this. So if you're really bad at doing push-ups, rest assured this is okay. And I think this is getting good. I think there's a couple of ways I'm gonna look at this. One is like a content strategy. What's good technical writing? And then also from an individual level. So I think good technical writing definitely meets developers where they are. And that's also like looking at the skill levels or the backgrounds of people. So I really like this from the TypeScript documentation, where they basically have, okay, if you want TypeScript for a new programmer, so you're just like jumping into TypeScript, which is okay, cool, whatever. Or if you know some JavaScript, do this one. Or if you know Java and C#, which is something that, not related to TypeScript, per se. Maybe you want to get into TypeScript, and then even for functional programmers. So that's a really cool way to make different levels of your documentation or your content to that specific audience, right? So if I'm not a new programmer, I'm not going to just say like, here's learn TypeScript, and then try to address all of these audiences in one documentation page. That would be impossible, right? To make it really work for them. So whoever made these TypeScript documentations, they said we'll just divide it up, and then we'll give each links to each of these, depending on your background. I think that's amazing, and I'd like to see that more in more documentation as well. This is also, again, background and previous skills. So this is from the React Native documentation. So they actually have a slider where if you come from like a web background or even Android background, depending on your code snippet, you can actually see developer notes to explain how this would sort of work within Android, or the concepts, how they connect to Android to React Native. Again, meeting developers where they are, where their background, what their previous skills are, is really invaluable, because it's going to speak to the language and they're going to get skilled up much faster on your product, protocol, project, whatever, than just like, oh, we're just going to talk about our, our project, like, people don't know anything at the beginning. So another great skill to have. And this is the thing I was talking about to the question earlier. Language is a huge one. Not everyone in the space speaks native English. Translating, to Billy's point, is hard to do, right? So also take great care. Alchemy does a really great job. They've translated their Road to Web3. I don't know if there was community source or they got someone to do it or whatnot, but they have a Road to Web3 in Mandarin and Hindi. So these are huge populations of developers. Why just have your content in English and say, oh, I hope everyone can translate, or I hope everyone understands? You're going to miss out on a lot of developers by doing that. And if you have the ability to do that, the funds, or someone in your community to do that, and you can get spot checkers, do it, because it's going to really open up the doors to more developers, which, again, that's mainly the goal for most Web3 or crypto projects. You got me on this crypto. I'm definitely going to do Web3 crypto every time now. Billy, you've changed me.
We're all coming out with something out of this workshop.
yeah. I'm a better man. Cool. And last one, another one is location. I really like this from MailChain. So I don't mean location like country wise, but yeah, I guess you could do that too. But like where people are at the moment when they read your documentation. So MailChain, they've done this hack pack, which is like how to get started working with MailChain really quickly at a hackathon. So they're like, if you want to add email to your like Web3 email to your project or something like that, or integrate ENS, you can do that. They have like specific guides to get quickly started on that. And I think that's really cool, even if it's like not really related to being at a hackathon per se, like you can use it any other time. I think it's really cool just to have that space to say like, oh yeah, you probably came here because you're probably hacking on something. Here's how to get started, like 3 different ways you can add to your project really quickly. And that's what I mean by location, right? Like actually where people are when they read it. And then probably the most important one of all of this, I'd said, is the jobs to be done. Developers come to learn, get something done in your documentation or your content. So don't divide your documentation in ways that like just describes your product. So this is from Stripe, right? They have like very clear things: start a payment, sell a product, issue coupons, get your balance, manage taxes. Like that's it. Like that's what people want to do, right? Not just like, oh, payment, like instead of payment system and seller system and balance management. Like don't put that as the titles of your pages, because then I will never really know what's under those pages without clicking on it. And I don't want to have to click on everything to find out my answers, right? And even on there below, they have like very clear guides: accept an online payment, create a subscription, receive payouts. It's not about the product itself or what connects to the product. It's about the job that people come to do. So make sure your documentation is very clear on and organize your documentation in a way where the jobs to be done is very clear, so people know where to find their answers. And this is this general content. I think why developers read anything or read your stuff, or basically anybody, but they generally read something because they want to feel smart. So you want them to give like some new information or a new perspective on the information, right? They want to feel good about themselves after they've read your content or article. They want to like look smart. So like, okay, maybe you want to give them something, information that they want to share with others. And I think the best example of this is like if you look at all the AI and LLM stuff out there, like people are sharing like demos like they made it. Like, right, they're on Twitter, like you have nothing to do with that demo. Like you just like, go mind blown, look at my GPT and my Apple Watch that I did, and like that's not even you on the video. But people are sharing that because they're like, oh, you get like associated with building something cool. So like if you write something really good or made some good article, people will share it because they want to be associated with your intelligence, your cool building things, right? So give them something to look smart, even if they don't even read it, right? Like give them a good headline, give them something to look smart with. And then lastly, it's like obviously solving a problem, right? They want people come in, they want a technical comment, they want to solve something, like to your point, Billy, right? Like the end to end actually of working with WAGMI or something like that, right? They don't want to just be left at the end of something and be left alone. They want to actually fully see the solution and solve a problem. So really give that to them. And just to kind of run with that as an example, we have this, the Web3 AI thing. So like, okay, let's say I want to write some headlines here. So if I want to like have someone feel smart, like, okay, I'm gonna start write something like how to build products on the decentralized AI future. Right? It's kind of exciting. I'm gonna look smart. Like if I read this, I will like know I'm a part of the decentralized AI future. So okay, I'll be cool with that. If I want to like look smart, right? Okay, behind the hype, which like everyone wants to be a bit contrarian. Everyone wants to be kind of above it, right? They want to be like the smart guy or smart girl in the corner. So behind the hype. So the why Web AI and Web3 need each other, right? Because the VCs were looking at Web3 last summer. Now they're looking at AI, but no, Web3 crypto is back. We're working together, right? That's gonna like look smart. And then lastly, if they want to actually learn something, right? So one of the big benefits of, again, when I was saying about the why of some of these projects and protocols, let's explain that to people, right? So like I can launch an AI startup at a fraction of the cost with Web3, right? All of these decentralized protocols out there. Now I don't have to make huge investments. I can build something really quickly at a fraction of the cost. So that's another thing. Like if I want to, solve a problem, maybe you're working with an AI startup and you're cash trapped, looking at these decentralized protocols may be a good way to do that, right? So I'm solving a problem with this headline, or hopefully trying to. So hopefully the content will live up to the hype, but we'll see. So another way to get good is getting good at research. I'm a huge big fan of note taking. I don't know, Billy, have you ever heard of Zettelkasten before?
Never heard of it at all.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're not a nerd like me. So that's great. Zettelkasten is like I'm gonna butcher this. So someone in the chat can probably like Wikipedia this real quickly. But it was made, I think, by a German guy. But he basically was like producing research papers like mad, and people were like, why? How are you doing this? Like you're like making this research like no one's ever been able to do. And he made up this method, and it was like super complex. He had cards, and basically any idea, he had like their own card, and there was a numbering system, and he could like reference the card later on. But basically the big idea was he was taking notes to take notes and not to just to write. So what that means is like a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to write about AI and Web3, and they go out and research AI and Web3 just for that one article. And then later on they move, and then they throw it all away and they start on a new article or whatever, right? So Zettelkasten is an idea where you can keep these notes in an organized way that you can reference them later on and build on them and find connections with them. I do a very lazy version of that because I don't really have time to do like cards and all of these numbers and all that. But basically, my strategy is I take fleeting notes, which is basically I just go to an article and I highlight everything I think it's important, and then I take those notes and then I make literature notes. So I kind of write out the ideas in my own language or my own way, in based on those highlights. And the permanent notes is supposed to be a bigger concept where you have like not articles, but you just have like them in a seated way when you make those connections. My permanent notes are normally the articles that I write. But I at least I try to keep these in there. And I think to your point, Billy, like some of these articles that are out there are like almost saying the same thing. And I will say out here, there's a big problem with plagiarism in the world of crypto writing. And this would be to my second point as well. But if you're doing this process of note taking, like literature notes and stuff like that, you're less likely to say the same exact thing as someone else because you're going through this process. So I'll reference a book later on that teaches this method way more in depth. But just to give you, that's like my approach to that. But to plagiarism as well, definitely work with primary sources. there are tons out there, right? There's white papers. So if you're writing about a project or protocol, read the white paper. Don't read the articles by DAppaDan as your reference, because then you're just going to sound like DAppaDan, and we already have enough DAppaDans in the world, right? Um, if you're writing about ERC or something like that, like look at the Ethereum improvement proposal, look directly in there. I know it's not like digestible in some ways, but that's going to be your primary source, right? And that's going to be where you get your truth. Because if I write something wrong and then you read what I write, and then it's just going to keep going on and on. And then lastly, obviously the developer documentation, right? You get to the true source of how these protocols are working with the documentation, and hopefully they're pretty good. And then lastly, to my earlier point, build, right? If you have some coding skills, actually building something, getting hands-on, is going to be really invaluable to making really great content if you've actually worked with those things, because then where things break, where things aren't making sense. So again, having those skills and getting good at that research from the hands-on research, really important for making good technical writing. I love my tools that I use. I have taken a whole process. There've been, if you ask me in like 2 weeks, this might be a whole nother lineup of tools, because I change them out. I'm never married to one of them, but I wanted to show you these things because I think loving your tools or like getting tool obsessed is not a way to become a better writer, but it doesn't make writing more enjoyable. And if you like writing and you write more because it's more enjoyable, you'll be a better writer. So this is why I invest my time in all these different tools. I use Raindrop.io for any research collecting. So if I write an article, like we'll make a little collection of them within Raindrop, tag it, things like that. I use Readerize Reader for highlighting. Because that also goes directly into my Obsidian, which I think some people might like to use Notion. I used Notion very early on, and then one day Notion went down for like a day, and I realized I don't own anything in Notion because Notion is like it needs internet connection. I don't know if it still does or not. So I needed to move pretty quickly to something else, and Obsidian is like markdown files essentially. So I can also export them. I can upload them to get a repo and all of that. So really nice tool, really worth looking at. And there's amazing plugins and a plugin community to make your writing even more efficient. So I'm like an efficiency, like, obsessed about like getting 0.003% efficiency in my writing. You don't have to be like me, but that's what I'm doing. And then lastly, for editing, I use Hemingway. I struggle with passive and active voice, and Hemingway calls me out every single time. So I use that quite often. And unfortunately or fortunately, Grammarly is probably the tool still of choice. I'm sure there's other things out there, but I do run through my articles through Grammarly as well. It's obviously not good for crypto lingo, but hey, everything else it catches pretty well. So I'll put links to these tools as well. And lastly, maybe why you only came here. Maybe that's what it was like. I really, really made you wait. But getting paid, right? I get this question all right. Like, okay, I'm good at writing, or I think I'm good at writing. How do I actually get people to pay me to write? Because that sounds like a dream, right? So the first thing I like to say is get off of localhost, and I stole this from the Build Space people, but I really like it because to me, what I think about localhost for writing is like your own personal blog. Um, so some people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I got this great portfolio, and I'm not getting people. I'm not getting any apply to jobs, or I'm not getting any clients or anything like that." And it's just full of a bunch of like Hashnode or Medium post or what's the other one? Dev2, right? The other ones. And that's all their personal blogs. And I have nothing against that. It's a great way to get started. That's how I started writing. But if you want to get someone to pay you to write, you need to get off of your personal site as soon as possible. And what I mean by that is this, right? You might say that's impossible. Like no one's going to pay me to write, but there's many different opportunities out there for you to get your stuff out there on other people's sites. Because one, if someone puts something on that's written by you on their site, it shows some value. Like they're like, oh well, this is worth having on my page. Like even though I'm not directly paying for you, like I'm paying for the hosting of the site. So that's one thing. So obviously one is developer DAO blog. Like you get code, which is like I'm gonna hold all my code and give all to my grandkids one day, and they're gonna love me for it. But yeah, that's like having your article on developer DAO blog. That's another site that's not yours. There's other protocols out there and companies out there that do authorship programs. Quick note, I know they had one. I think they're revamping that. Streamer is going to launch one soon. They just let me know. So do check them out. And I know Third Web also has like an ambassador program where you can get published. So these are all things where you can get your stuff out there. And again, if you have a portfolio of just, 3 Hashnode blogs, but one on DeveloperDAO or one on QuickNote or something, or one on the Third Web, it's going to mean a lot more to people than just having your own personal blogs and stuff like that. I mean, and again, I have nothing against that. I have my own personal blog too. But if you want to get paid, if you want to get clients, you want to get hired, this is the way to do it. I think it was far better than just having personal stuff. And then, you can be a writer today. I know there was a question about how many Web3 technical writers are out there. I know this is probably hard to see, but I searched on Twitter. But these are all people calling themselves Web3 technical writers. At least, the top. I don't know why I'm on the bottom. I don't know what happened there, but I used to be on the top. I think I need to like get my followers up or something. But yeah, people call themselves in their bios technical writers. So if you want to become a Web3 technical writer or crypto writer, whatever, call yourself that on your bio, and people will find you. Trust me, especially if you're publishing things and you have things published on other sites. And so this is what these people are doing, right? You see some familiar faces here. So again, that doesn't cost you anything to change your bio, at least not yet. Elon might change that. I don't know. And then lastly, this is the most disturbing GIF, right? You've probably ever seen. So I'm gonna let you soak that in, and then I'm gonna take it away because I can't I can't read with looking at that. But you do need to twerk a little bit. Yeah, you
took my video down. What's up? That was me out there with my hat.
Yeah. You do need to twerk a little bit if you want to get paid. So what I mean by that is like, go ahead and like pick a Web3 project or a protocol or whatever, right, that you might be interested in. And I say this all the time, but like create a 3-part series. So do like a developer introduction, do like a technical, how this works, why it's important, how does it compare to some other project protocols out there that are similar, and then go make it like a tutorial guide. So this is like the second part of how to integrate that into Next app or whatever, right? And then like do another one. This is like, what I think is next for this space or this protocol or whatnot. Like this doesn't have to be perfectly like this, but like a 3-part series on one specific project protocol. And if you gave that to a project protocol and said, listen, this is what I wrote, or you tagged them on Twitter, I find it to be really, really hard for them not necessarily hire you like there on the spot, but they will be interested in your profile. And if not them, other people will be, because you've shown your value and like how you can write, and in different ways, right? These are kind of 3 different content types. And I think that's going to be really pushes you above the list on people who are just kind of writing one-off things everywhere, or like, I'm going to write about account abstraction. Like everyone's written about account abstraction, right? Like, yeah, there's a million Twitter threads out there, but like talk about how one protocol is implementing account abstraction, and what do you think is the future of that? And do a guide. That's going to be far better than just writing about concepts, I think. When you want to get paid, if you want to just write and learn, do what you want. And then share it everywhere, right? Twitter, Discords have all this like shared content stuff out there. Share it with your grandma, get it out there. If you send me a link to your article, Twitter DM, I'll retweet, share it, do what I can to get your word out there too. So that's my DAppaDan promise to you. There's some other additional resources. If you like resources, it sounds like at least one of you do. So I'll put them in like a Twitter thread or something. But this is the how to take smart notes. So that was exactly about the Zettelkasten and like research. It's a great book if you want to get better at research. There's Docs for Developers, which I think is a great article around audience development or like user profiles. They go really depth in that. There's a really great other talk called by Paul Brown called The Baseline. It's all about technical writing for non-technical readers, and like why you're recommending that. I think it's really good because it talks about removing jargon from your language. And I think crypto or Web3 is full of jargon. Like, right, we just say decentralized, but what does that actually mean, right? What's important about that? And this talk kind of gets into that kind of stuff. And then from a general writing perspective, there's this Coursera course called Good with Words. And it's about writing and editing. So it's really, from a general writing perspective, a good course to take. So I thank you, Hall. Hopefully I gave you something that you expected. Like I said, we can't all be RuPaul, but we can all be better writers. I'm here to help. So if you ever want me to edit something or look at something, retweet, share, let my thoughts, here's where you can find me. There's my newsletter. I publish whenever I want. Basically, I tried to do it every 2 weeks and that didn't work, but hopefully I'll get one out soon. But thanks everybody. Thank you, Billy.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely got some, some gems of information on this for myself. We did have a couple follow-up questions. I don't want to get in there, but like, are you part of any Telegram group chats or Discord channels like for tech writers?
Yeah, there is one that was started by Elon from Alchemy. It's not very active, but yeah, we have a tech writers Telegram group for Web3 crypto. Crypto.
Awesome. I mean, I want to point out like that you have your protocol newsletter and like you're kind of explaining different dApps and protocols as a neutral position, because again, my beef with DevRels is kind of like, it's always, yeah, this is the best. It's kind of like having a friend that's always falling in love every 2 weeks. Like this was the jam, and now they got a new job. Like, nah, this is the jam.
This is the new future. Actually, I've invested. I love those Twitter announcements. I'm not calling out anyone in particular, but I love it. Like, I have found the new future now, and my new job happens to be that same exact thing.
Yeah, the ones that paying me, right? So like, never ask at a restaurant what's good here. Oh, everything's good. Yeah, now I know you're liar.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, definitely check that out, because having a neutral like position where you're kind of getting paid, but you can be honest is very valuable.
I haven't gotten paid. I don't take a cent from any of the projects I write for. So.
Oh, well then even better. Yeah. I trust you even more now.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, no payments.
But just to throw that out there, Developer DAO does pay code, and when there's a partner blog, it is in USDC. So those aspiring writers that get in there definitely get connected with Kay and Krinza to get that all up and running, and definitely get yourself out there on the Developer DAO blog. I'm actually on the Developer DAO blog, and that story worked for me too. I wrote a blog, and then company liked what I did, and then we had a conversation, right? Like that's literally all it took, was creating that blog and then getting that conversation. And I'm not a major writer, but like I like my A through Z type of style, and they like that style. So like sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. But what a great place to get started. Active Developer DAO members, definitely, make some noise. Definitely.
Make some noise. That's a good ending. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Oh, actually, I almost forgot. We do have I know, and Kemp's probably going to kill me. We have a Mint Kudos for those. So I'm putting that QR code. I'm letting you grab your phone out. If you're working on the phone, check out the YouTube later. But definitely grab the Mint Kudos for checking out DAppaDan and the community workshop. Also, while we are waiting on that, next week there is no community workshop because I will be at the DevDAO base meetup for A16Z Tech Week. So that is a big event than I thought it was going to be. So like it is basically reserved out, right? We've had like an overwhelming amount of people sign up. I'll be doing the workshop on account abstraction. So
nice. Never heard about that.
Yeah. And so I'll be showing them how to do that in like Third Web. I didn't know how to use the SDK like 2 weeks ago. And so I was like, all right, let me learn it and do it. So that's done and ready to rock. But if there is a Developer DAO member that just was lagging to sign up, even though I've already told you like weeks in advance, but if you are going and you didn't know you were going to go, hit me up, let me know. It can't be a Developer DAO like meetup without Developer DAO members. So I will get you in. All right. So like, not your friend, not whatever, like a Developer DAO member, so definitely hit me up. We'll get you in. This is the room that you want to be in, right? Like there's a lot of people that can make or break some kind of projects on there. So definitely head out there. That's June 8th. That would be 1 week from now. If you're in LA, definitely hit me up. And that's the end of that shill on there. But thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it. Like, this is definitely going to be a reference point for community workshops. That's what we're trying to do here at Developer DAO. We got a lot of talent all over the place. We want to see your skills. We want basically to help each other out. Like that's the whole point of Developer DAO. We're a network of talented individuals. Let's do some cool shit. Let's build something.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So awesome to have you, Dan. And then whenever, follow Dan. Definitely. I mean, no better reason.
Yes.
All right, guys. Catch you guys later. We're gonna go off in 3, 2, or maybe not yet.